Bear Brook State Park. 9,000 acres of pine and birch in southern New Hampshire. Families picnic here. Hikers follow marked trails through the woods. It looks like safety. But in November 1985, a hunter walked off the trail. He found a barrel rusting in a clearing. What was inside would haunt this forest for the next 40 years. 4 bodies. 3 barrels. Decades of silence. And when investigators finally named the killer, they discovered something worse. He had murdered his own daughter. Tonight, a story about names. The ones we lose. The ones we steal. And the 40-year search to give them back to the dead. This is the Bear Brook murders. And the mystery is not over. The hunter's name has been kept private. What he saw that November day, he likely never forgot. A 55-gallon drum, the kind used for industrial chemicals. Inside were skeletal remains. A woman. A young girl, wrapped in plastic, stuffed into darkness, and left to be forgotten in the New Hampshire woods. Police processed the scene but found no identification. No wallet, no jewelry, no dental records that matched anyone reported missing. The victims became Jane Doe and Child Doe and Child Doe. The case went cold. Years passed. The barrel sat in evidence storage. The woods of Bear Brook kept their secrets. Then in November 2000, 15 years almost to the day, a detective returned to the same area. He was looking for something. He found 2 more barrels, 2 more children. 4 victims now. All female. All found within 300 feet of each other. All anonymous. Investigators called them the Bear Brook Four. The woman was estimated to be in her late 20s or early 30s. The children ranged from infancy to around 11 years old. Someone had killed an entire family, or so investigators assumed. The truth, when it finally emerged, would prove far stranger. These were not all one family, and the killer was closer than anyone imagined. For 17 years after the second discovery, the case remained unsolved. Traditional forensics had failed. There were no matches in any database, no witnesses, no leads. Then a new science emerged. Genealogy. Investigators could now trace family trees through DNA, finding relatives of unknown victims in commercial ancestry databases. In 2017, investigators submitted DNA from the Bear Brook victims to a genealogy database. The results would finally name the killer, Terry Rasmussen. There was just one problem. Rasmussen had died in a California prison in 2010. 7 years before his identification. He would never answer for what he did, but identifying the killer was only half the work. The victims still had no names. 4 women and children, still anonymous, still waiting to be claimed. Rasmussen was a drifter. He moved through America using false identities, at least a dozen different aliases. Bob Evans, Larry Vanner, Gordon Jensen. Names stolen from real people. He took jobs, formed relationships, and moved on before anyone could connect the trail of missing women behind him. A ghost in human form. Investigators discovered Rasmussen had been married multiple times. Women in his life had a pattern of disappearing. Some were found. Others, like Pepper Reed, never were. In 2019, Genealogy identified 3 of the Bear Brook victims. Marlyse Honeychurch, age 24, and her 2 young daughters from different fathers. Marlyse and her daughters, Marie and Sarah, were last seen alive in November 1978. Rasmussen had been dating Marlyse. Then they all vanished. The timeline came into focus. Rasmussen killed them, disposed of their bodies in Bear Brook, then continued his life. Using new names, finding new victims. But one victim remained unidentified. The fourth child. Investigators called her the middle child. She was not related to the Honeychurch family. Her DNA told a different story. For 6 more years, investigators searched. Who was this girl? How did she end up in a barrel with strangers? The answer would prove devastating. Genealogists built a family tree containing 25,000 people. Distant cousins, third and fourth relatives, anyone with shared genetic markers. Slowly, the branches narrowed. In September 2025, investigators made an announcement. The fourth victim had been identified. Her name was Rea Rasmussen, born 1976 in Orange County, California. Was the killer's biological daughter. Terry Rasmussen had murdered his own child and disposed of her body alongside his girlfriend and her daughters. The revelation stunned even veteran investigators. Serial killers typically choose victims outside their families. The intimacy of this crime defied understanding. Rea's mother was a woman named Pepper Reed. She met Rasmussen in California in the mid-1970s. They had a daughter together, and Pepper disappeared. To this day, Pepper Reed has never been found. Investigators believe she is another of Rasmussen's victims. Her body may lie in an unknown location, still waiting to be discovered. The New Hampshire Department of Justice made a statement after Rea's identification. The investigation, they said, is not over. They are still searching for Pepper. Rasmussen is now suspected in murders across multiple states. Bodies may remain undiscovered in places he lived and worked over his decades of movement. He chose a life designed for disappearing. Low-wage jobs, transient relationships, names that were never his. In the pre-digital age, a man like this could move through society almost invisible. But DNA does not lie. And 40 years after their deaths, science caught up with what violence had tried to hide. The Bear Brook case became a landmark in forensic genealogy. It demonstrated that even the coldest cases could be solved if investigators were willing to try new methods. Since 2017, genetic genealogy has helped solve dozens of cold cases across America. Victims unnamed for decades are finally being identified. Killers long dead are being exposed. The technology relies on public DNA databases. Millions of people have submitted samples to commercial ancestry services, never imagining their DNA might solve a murder. This raises questions that extend beyond any single case. Privacy advocates worry about the implications. What does it mean when your cousin's DNA can identify you? For the families of the Bear Brook victims, these questions may feel distant. What matters is the names. After 40 years, they finally know who was lost. Marlyse Honeychurch was 24 when she died. Her daughters Marie and Sarah were 11 and infant. Rasmussen was between 2 and 4 years old. These were real people with real lives ahead of them. A mother and 3 children who trusted someone they should not have trusted. Rasmussen exploited that trust. He used their vulnerability. And when he was done, he discarded them like industrial waste in the New Hampshire woods. He was arrested in 2002 for an unrelated crime involving a child. He died in prison 8 years later, his connection to Bear Brook undiscovered until after his death. Justice, in the traditional sense, was never served. No trial, no conviction, no chance for the families to face the man who took everything from them. But there is another kind of justice. The restoration of identity. The return of a name to someone who had it stolen. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children worked on the Bear Brook case for years. When Rea was finally identified, they called it a mystery solved. But one mystery remains. Pepper Reed, a mother who vanished with her daughter in the 1970s and has never been found. Investigators believe she is dead. The pattern of Rasmussen's crimes leaves little doubt. But without a body, Without remains, her case stays open. Somewhere, perhaps in another barrel, in another forest, in a place only Rasmussen knew. Pepper Reed may still be waiting. The Bear Brook case offers lessons for anyone interested in how we solve the unsolvable. Persistence matters. The detectives who returned to that clearing in 2000 never gave up. Technology evolves. Techniques that seem impossible today may be routine in a decade. The cases we cannot solve now may yield to methods not yet invented. If you want to understand genetic genealogy, resources exist. Organizations like the DNA Doe Project work to identify unknown victims. Their methods are public and documented. Consider the ethical dimensions. When you submit DNA to an ancestry service, you affect not just yourself but every relative you have. This power cuts both ways. Cases like Bear Brook remind us that killers rely on anonymity, the itinerant lifestyle, the false names, the transient relationships, all designed to evade connection. But connections exist now that did not exist before. DNA databases, digital records. The trail we leave behind grows harder to erase with each passing year. If someone in your life disappeared under suspicious circumstances, know that cold case units exist in every state. Some specialize in exactly these investigations. The Bear Brook victims spent decades without names. They were buried as unknowns, mourned by no one who knew them. That silence has finally been broken. Marlyse Honeychurch, Marie, Sarah, Rea Rasmussen. These names matter. They are the first step in remembering that these were people, not cases. The investigation continues. New Hampshire authorities have stated publicly that they are still searching for Pepper Reed and any other victims Rasmussen may have left behind. Somewhere, perhaps, another barrel waits. Another victim whose name has been lost. Another story that science might one day tell. Bear Brook State Park still stands. Families still picnic there. Hikers still follow the marked trails. The woods have not changed. But now we know what happened there. We know the names of the dead. And we know the name of the man who put them in the ground. 40 years. 4 bodies. And finally, the truth. Some stories take time. Some answers require patience measured in decades. For Pepper Reed, the search continues. Somewhere in America, a mother is still missing, and investigators are still looking.